we'll have a series of short speakers. Not short, they won't be short, the speeches will be short. But they will come to the podium and give some insights about their particular specialty areas. And then the exciting thing is we're going to have a discussion between the different panelists and also include points of view and questions or challenges from the audience and incorporate that into the material so that we finish with a really holistic view of the current state of play for social media and the challenges ahead, and of course for us the exciting opportunities that this gives for empowerment and innovation, I think, for particularly within the European healthcare environment.
So the first thing just to address is, what is social media? It's a term that's bandied around very frequently in the media and amongst consumers, but really what it is social media is a platform that allows its users to engage, importantly, in multi-directional conversations online. And really what social media is the digital content that they create here. So a fairly simple definition, really focused on the direct, multi-directional conversations.
So let me now talk about how companies, especially in other industries, are using this power of social media. What are some of the typical challenges to expect? And also some thoughts on where to get started. So companies today leverage social media in two primary ways. First, as a way to engage consumers. And here what we mean by engagement is in an authentic dialogue as opposed to the traditional one-way communication. Secondly, it's for listening, as a source of genuine consumer insight that is more immediate and more real than has ever been possible before. And they're then using this to act on it across the value chain, from product development to monitoring launch, from improving their campaigns to defensive branding and PR, and from improving customer service to actually using social media to recruit talent. Let's first start talking about engagement and how consumers are using that to drive positive word of mouth, both online as well as offline. We believe that companies that do this well are building stories, narratives about their brands that give consumers a reason to talk about them. In a recent skincare company example, we found that this type of consumer-driven advocacy accounted for as high as 60% of the purchase decision. And with digital and social media, you can proactively harness this word of mouth. Further research shows that when consumers talk to their friends about a favored brand, their own feelings of loyalty are enhanced. So not only they are creating referrals and getting new consumers into the base, they are themselves becoming more loyal users. The impact of doing all of this is seen across real business metrics. For example, in case of one company, it helped reduce research cost and time by up to 90%. It significantly improves marketing ROI, especially when you're integrating offline and online campaigns. It helps increase brand loyalty and advocacy, and indeed, it leads to higher sales.
The internet consumer is not teens anymore. Of course, UK is leading the scenario of the silver surfer. This is a huge phenomenon right now. US e-patients over 65 has doubled over the last 5 years. 31% of UK users are over 50, and almost 1/3 of Italian internet users are over 50. So why so many people looking for healthcare information online? Just for very, very easy reasons. Because it's a quick and easy access to advice and information, helping people to deal with their condition. Internet keeps information given by each patient confidential, and we see this trend is huge for categories like Viagra or Chalice products. It's huge, the demand on online versus the offline. Internet raises awareness on disease, encouraging prevention. So for you, it's a very, very important way. It's an important stage of the consumer path to purchase, to exploit. And at the end, the internet is an always-on source of information. I don't have to wait for the doctor or for the pharmacist's opening hours. I can have fast and access to the information when I want, and in the website I have.
So what I think we should try and work together
is to really do something to make our audience more aware of what is the way to talk to a doctor, to talk to a pharmacist. What are the expectations in that conversation? What should I expect from that conversation? Not the bar too high, not too low, right? It shouldn't be a monologue, but not even something like, hey, expect something immediately or whatever, right? So that type of conversation, I think, would need some form of help from us as a digital media, and you as the industry around this, because that's where the real conversation happen, right? Then there is a digital one, but the real conversation still happen between two human beings, the patient and the doctor.
I think this is also the case in our industry of consumer healthcare. In many instances, language is almost imposed as a result of regulations or tradition, which may have very little meaning to consumers, and you know, we perhaps underestimate how difficult it is for consumers to really decode how to use our products or to do the right thing. And we, you know, with the best of intent, we can misdirect consumers or perhaps not take them to the right place. But I wanted to bring in Ilaria on this point, because you represent the European consumer here. And do you see the role for social media in addressing asymmetry and empowerment of the consumer?
I think that social media can indeed attempt to reduce the information asymmetry between consumers and healthcare professionals. Of course, it's just a tool. The most important thing is the information provided is of high quality. And as Paolo said, and as you said, this information should be easily understandable, should be patient-centered, targeted to the audience, to be effective and to be usable. In fact, we always ask for the information to empower consumers. It should be information that can be used to act upon it. So it's not just information for the sake of information, but information that is usable to change behavior, to change approach, also in the relationship with healthcare professional. The role for all of us here today, for regulators, for companies, for healthcare professionals, for consumers organization, is to make sure that consumers can safely place their trust in social media. And how to do this? Well, here I listed just 4 key principles from our perspective. The first point is giving consumers a secure digital environment. What does it mean? Just to list a few. Giving consumers a secure digital environment means ensuring a coherent implementation of the data protection legislation. I would say the European, in Europe, data protection legislation, including the principle of data minimization, necessity, purpose limitation, and data security. But also clarifying the rule for informed consent, improve transparency and fairness of privacy notice, adopt specific rules for children and young people, set up joint multi-layer liability to make sure that all those involved in the processing of this information are accountable if something goes wrong, and that consumers can ask for compensation or redress in general. Transparency on the internet means that the source of the information, the sponsor of the advertising, but also the target audience, the objective of the website, the blog, the Twitter, whatever it is, should always be indicated. And as I said before, this information should be, to be valuable, to be responsive to consumer needs, it should be of high quality, meaning that it should be patient-centered, it should be reliable, it should be updated, it should be evidence-based, it should be understandable, it should be legible as well, not written in very small font. This increases consumer trust. And the very last point I want to make is that there should be a clear distinction between the different sources of the information. The competent authorities, the healthcare professional companies, they all have a very legitimate role to provide information to the general public. But their role and their responsibility should be clearly separated to help consumers to navigate the jungle, the information jungle.
Because I think what we have, I mean, we are all here, I think, advocating is high quality information. I think we need to make sure that whatever the use of social media is done in the health sector, this is done, first of all, in respect of existing legislation, sectorial legislation, which prevail on any, social media type of development. Because I think, the social media is a development, is a cultural change, is driving the way we all live our lives. But of course, we have also some legislation which was developed years before this phenomenon was actually taking so much influence in our life. And I mean, I think there was a question on whether there is a foreseeing or there are forecasts of changing, adapting legislation at European level to take into account social media. I take this opportunity maybe to answer this as well. I think there is legislation in place which prevails. Of course, at the Commission, we are also closely monitoring this phenomenon and how this impacts the health sector. But of course, the short answer to the question is there is no legislation in place. There is no forecasting of having specific legislation to regulate that. It's actually pretty impossible to regulate, probably. Of course, we are monitoring the situation to see how we can create the best how could I say, condition to make sure that the information, again, is high quality, reliable, and I think the point was made earlier on the importance of coaching, of the importance of training and awareness with the consumer, with the patient, with the citizens, on the opportunity that you have, of course, by getting information on the social media, but as well on the risks, because, I mean, social media can very badly misused and can very badly affect the patient health and as well the company's reputation if that's not carefully dealt with. So on the fact of whether there is a veto, I mean a kind of quality approval for the information on the social media, I think this was one of the questions that the audience was made. I think, well, there isn't, to my knowledge, and definitely not at European level. So there are actions which are very legal and legislative, which we will need to look at to see how certain aspects should be adapted, if at all. We should not position the social media or other IT tools as a way to replace existing profession or as a way to replace the contact which is necessary with the doctors and pharmacists and the healthcare system as such, but this is an additional tool to have people better understanding and to have people to be in a position to better manage their own health and take a more active role in the way they actually relate themselves with the professionals and with the system.
Looking at the data, looking at the use of social media, the use of digital technologies to obtain health information, that this has become a very powerful tool in the way that individuals are taking care of themselves. And I think it's important to bear in mind that social media is not a tool. These digital technologies are not necessarily tools. And that's not the significance of this change, this shift that's been occurring. What has happened is that people are applying these technologies. They are applying these tools, and they're using those to redefine their relationships with individuals like themselves, but also with established organizations and institutions. Organizations like the companies that we work for, institutions like governments and other authoritative bodies. And they're using those in that way by connecting to other like-minded individuals and by kind of pulling data and information from people who they trust, who just even 5 to 10 years ago didn't have a means by which to communicate to such a broad and diverse audience. I want to leave you with one thought, and it goes back to my final point on a slide a few slides back, which is around flexibility. This isn't an easy task, and it's one where you need to be constantly in motion and constantly looking at ways to tweak and improve. There's no perfect social media strategy, and I dare say there are probably no social media experts. Everyone is learning constantly.